Hi guys, so this week we're talking about our first grammatical mistake that we are going to be discussing out of our three. And so my three that I'm going to be talking about in my videos over the semester are first the difference between whose, and whom, meaning the difference between whose, W-H-O-S-E, W-H-O apostrophe S, and whom, W-H-O-M. I'll be discussing the difference between those three words and how to properly use them in a sentence. My second one is apostrophe usage in general, but I'm also specifically going to be focusing on whether or not we put the apostrophe before an S, after an S, or we don't use one at all, and when to properly use that. And then my third one is just going to simply be the words was and were, the differences between was and were, and when we use them, because they're not just one is past tense, one is pretense, they're uh, different ways of using was and were in proper sentences. And so, because I should have said this first off, because my first one, whose, and whom, includes an apostrophe, I'm actually going to cover apostrophes first. So this video is going to be discussing apostrophes. I'm going to briefly touch on how to properly use apostrophes across the board, but I'm going to specifically, as I already said, focus on the problem that I've always had, which is not knowing whether to put apostrophes before an S, after an S, or not at all. And once I did some research, and I'll list the two websites that I pulled my research from, but once I did the research, it's really easy once you get it in your brain to know when to use an apostrophe and when not to use an apostrophe. It honestly was using apostrophes after the S and seeing an apostrophe after an S that always freaked me out. Whereas once I actually delved in and did some research, it became crystal clear. And so a lot of the material about the apostrophe that I'll be reading I did pull from the website The Oatmeal. And so if you'd like to follow along with exactly what I'm saying in the order that I'm saying it, I would go to the Oatmeal post that Professor Nelson posted in our WordPress, the comics, and one of the comics is the correct usage of the apostrophe, and if you follow that comic strip down, I'm going in the same order that that comic strip goes in. And so the first one is if it's plural, you don't use an apostrophe. And so if there are teacups, cups does not have an apostrophe anywhere in it just because there are multiple teacups. There is no use for an apostrophe. The second is if it's indicating possession. My name is Kyle. This is my pen. So if this is Kyle's pen, if it's sitting on the desk and it's Kyle's pen, Kyle's has an apostrophe in it because it is his, Kyle's pen. His would not, of course, H-I-S, but Kyle's pen has an apostrophe in it. If you're trying to say it is or it has, the word its has an apostrophe in it. I have never had a problem with this one because all you have to do is replace its with it is, and if the sentence makes sense, it is, it's lovely weather we're having today would have an apostrophe in its because that sentence works when you hear yourself say out loud, it is lovely weather we are having today. If you plug in it is or it has in some circumstances, and it sounds right, the apostrophe belongs in the word its. I'm rambling right along here because I'm getting to my last example, which is before the S or after the S. If it's a possessive name ending in an S, my name does not end in an S. Oatmeal uses the name Charles. The name Charles ends in an S, and so you can actually use it both ways. You can put the apostrophe after Charles and then a second S so Charles apostrophe S, or you can just spell the name Charles and put the apostrophe after the name Charles. Which brings me to my last point. When do apostrophes go before the S or after the S, which is what I'll mostly be focusing on? The Oatmeal states, and is correct of course, that it is a possessive and plural name when it goes after the S. For instance, the Oatmeal uses the Johnson's recipe because there are multiple Johnsons. The Johnsons are a family. The Johnson's recipe, the apostrophe goes after the S in the name Johnson's. Now, so that's one example. The apostrophe, again, goes after the S when it's the possessive of multiple people. And what I'll be doing is I'll be showing you this fantastic example that I found on the Daily Writing Tips website. It's a website called Daily Writing Tips. And the article is called the possessive apostrophe. And so if you Google Daily Writing Tips possessive apostrophe, you'll find this website. And it's on this website where I found this fantastic example that I'm going to be showing up here on a piece of paper to show you guys the 4 different types of using the apostrophe before and after the S. So the sentence is, my sister's friend's CD. If you hear someone say out loud, my sister's friend's CD, that one sentence can have 4 different meanings. And so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be showing you guys the 4 different meanings of my sister's friend's sentences. Now, in this first one, my sister's friend's CD, or excuse me, my sister's friend's CDs, not sentences. My sister's friend's CD is, I have one sister and she has one friend. Her friend has one CD. My sister's friend's CD. How do we know this? Because the apostrophe comes before the S in both words, meaning I have one sister. She has one friend who has one CD. So my sister's friend's CD. The second, my sister's friend's CD, is I have more than one sister. How do you know this? You know I have more than one sister because the apostrophe comes after the S. So again, it is both possessive and plural because it comes after the S. However, my sisters, my multiple sisters, only have one friend with one CD because friends has the apostrophe before the S, which again we know means one friend has one CD. My sister's friend's CDs. By now you should be getting the hang of it that I now, in this sentence, am saying I have multiple sisters who have multiple friends who, for some reason, have one CD. I know this example doesn't make much sense, but you get the idea. It's about the apostrophes. So my multiple sisters have multiple friends who have one CD. And in the final one, I have one sister. How do we know it comes before the apostrophe? Who have multiple friends. How do we know it comes after the S? Excuse me. Apostrophe becomes before the S. The apostrophe comes after the S. Has one CD. I thought that was a fantastic way of the exact same sounding sentence when you say them out loud, my sister's friend's CD, having 4 different meanings. And so that's what I decided to cover with my video this week. Again, in the future grammatical videos, I'll be covering the differences between who's, whom, and whose, and was and were. Is it if I was a rich man or if I were a rich man? Stay tuned to find out. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys next week in my next video, and I look forward to seeing your videos this week on grammar. Hopefully somebody else had apostrophes and maybe covered another part of apostrophes other than before and after the S, or did a better job of explaining the apostrophe than I did. Otherwise, I look forward to starting the second project with you guys, and I'll talk to you about it then. Bye.